quadratic formula by hand. Quadratic formula is x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So in the first investigation, you had a problem that you FOILed, and we had 6x squared minus 13x plus 6. Now remember that we had to have a, b, and c. So a is 6, b is negative 13, and c is also 6, which makes this a little bit weird to set up, but we'll figure it out. So if I set up my quadratic formula, it solves for the x-intercepts. X equals is why you write it that way. The opposite of b, so our b is negative 13, so we're going to say positive 13. Plus and minus, because there's always two solutions, or usually two solutions. A negative 13 squared minus 4 times 6, which is a, and 6, which is c, all over 2 times 6. Now, all of this here, you can start calculating any of this as you go. I'm just showing you guys the necessary steps as we proceed through this. So x equals, I'm going to start simplifying, 13 plus and minus. Remember, there's always two answers, so you got to have plus and minus in here. Negative 13 squared, a negative times a negative is positive, so I can really just ignore the negative part. If you put it in your calculator, you've got to make sure you use the parentheses, otherwise you'll get a negative answer, and that's not what we want at this point. So we have 169. 4 times 6 times 6 is 144. I did that in my calculator. I didn't use my math brain. And then 2 times 6 is 12. So I'm going to simplify. 13 plus or minus 169 minus 144 is 25. So under the square root is 25. And now I have 12. Continuing this simplification, now is where I'm going to get my close to my two answers. So I have 13 plus or minus, I'm going to square root 25, and it is 5, and 12. The plus and minus not only stands for the fact that you have two answers to this, but it also says a square root has a positive and a negative value. All square roots have a positive and a negative value. So I have 13 plus 5, which is 18 over 12. And my second answer is 13 minus 5, which is 8 over 12. When you guys did this on the online tool, if you use the online tool, sorry, because I know you didn't do this one, these are the answers you got, and then it gave you some decimal answers. I'm going to encourage you to never, never, never use those decimal answers unless you know how to convert them. Now, if you had one of our cool calculators like we had at school, you could do that, but we're not going to be able to do that unless you have an easier way to convert using your ABC key. So I'm always going to keep these improper, but I'm going to reduce it. 18 and 12 both divide by 6. So I'm going to get 3 over 2. And 8 and 12 both divide by 4. So I'm going to get 2 over 3. So my solution is 3/2 and 2/3. Those are my two answers. When I write this into factored form, then I'm going to set each one equal to x. And I'm going to move these pieces over. So divide by 2 is first, and SADMEP, we're going to undo this, but it's still SADMEP. So I'm going to multiply first. And now I'm going to subtract this 3 over. It's hanging out all by itself. It's a plus, or it's an add. So now I have 2x minus 3. And what I'm left with is equals 0. When I do the 3/2 part, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to multiply by 3. I'm going to subtract 2. And those are my zeros. 2x minus 3 and 3x minus 2 tells me that they were equal to 0. When I put this into graphable form or equation form, I have 2x minus 3 and 3x minus 2 equal to y. And now I know what my zeros are right there, or my factors were, and it all came from what I started with.